What's up, everybody? Welcome. My name is Bobby. I am with the Wild Raven Tarot channel. Hey, Selena, I see you in the crowd. What up, sis? Hunter will be joining us. He's running a little late right now, but I wanted to get in before anyone thought, oh no, Bobby forgot again. Now, I didn't forget my show yesterday. I got stuck. With family. So I had to put that on hold, which is fine. And I'm doing a several part series on the 22 card spread I work with. And we're going to be dealing with the Hebrew alphabet, the alphabet, on our next video. We've talked about standardized meanings, astrology, and this one we're going to be doing the Hebrew alphabet with it. Now, you don't need to know these things to learn how to read the video, but it does help. So this spread that I've been doing is a single card or single word spread for each angle you look at it. So I like it. I invite you guys to check it out. So what do we got? We've got Selena. Yes. We've also got Spiritual Alchemy Energy, the podcast with Julie. Well, that's a mouthful. Hey, Viviani. What up, girl? How you doing? Yeah, usually I'm the one running late. How funny. Tonight, if all goes planned, we're going to be talking about Shiva, and Hunter just popped in. Hold on one second. Hey, Hunter, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. How you doing today?
Good. We're already live, by the way. How you doing? I was just explaining what we're doing tonight. Let me switch us around right here. There we go. So Hunter has joined me before, talking about Kali, and I invited him back to find out about Shiva. So that is what we are doing. Everybody's saying hi, Hunter. Hi, Hunter.
Hello.
Can you quickly just give us the lightest recap on the goddess Kali?
So Kali, as pertaining to Shiva, so Shiva is Shiva, and Shiva without Shakti or Kali, the I is Shava, a corpse. So Kali is the power of God, whereas Shiva is Purusha, which is the thin line on the ocean's edge where the beach meets the ocean. That thin line of foam is
The
basically
liminal.
Purusha, the line between us and the source. So Kali she's my goddess first and foremost. I'd say I know more about her than Shiva. Shiva they're two sides to the same coin, but I have a preference for one side of the coin. But she's very much the power of God. She is dominant in the relationship. If we were to think about Kali and Shiva, without Shiva, Kali would be blind, but so Shiva's usually conceived of as being sight, but impotent, basically a corpse without Kali. So basically, we have this idea of Kali on the back of Shiva. Shiva sees and is guiding, but he's on the back of Kali because he can't really do anything without her. It's almost like trying to separate the heat and light from fire. It's if you take away, you can't separate the heat or the light from fire, and Kali is very much the heat, the energy of that duo.
I get that. I've noticed, well, it's a big thing in any goddess-based religion, or for the most part, any religion, the females tend to be the stronger power in the relationship, whether
It
it's
definitely
recognized or not.
definitely in the East, definitely for Southern Asia. I would say even in most forms of paganism,
Hmm.
I would say so. I've always been very averse to anything Abrahamic. I'm not a fan of the patriarchy that seems to exist throughout the Middle East. no matter what age we're talking about. Even if we're talking about all the way back to Sumerians. Well, if we go back to Sumerians, the goddesses are pretty strong. But anything Abrahamic, I'm very averse to, and I think that it's actually a detriment to our human societies that the feminine aspect is so much um, divorced from meaning or divorced from power. So I'm definitely on board with that.
Yeah, to me, everything starts and ends with the feminine. Um, eh, I read a series of books called the Black Jewels trilogy, and in that, the women are powerful and have magic, and so do the men, but they still put the women first because they are the primal aspect. And I love that. I love swimming in goddess energy these days. The gods are on the comeback. And
Yeah,
like you say, the patriarchy does everything they can to stop it from happening, but you can't. Things are
and
going to happen the way they're going to happen.
and patriarchy is relatively new in human society. If we're talking about maybe patriarchy kind of really started maybe 6,000 years ago, something like that. But for most of human history, we had a very much everywhere had a very much goddess based understanding and also significance. At the very least, there was this dualism where one is as strong as the other. Whereas modern society, we think of modern society as going back very far, but people in Egypt, in ancient Egypt, were on the tops of roofs and coffee shops, reading newspapers and drinking coffee, just like we do now in ancient Egypt before the Abrahamics, came into the area. A lot of aspects of modern society have kind of maintained. There's a heightened degree of technology, but at the same time, that technology does not subvert the overall kind of vibe that human society now has. But I think that goddess worship and goddess significance is coming back in a very strong way. It'll just take a little bit of time, but at the very least, it will be a dualism of equal importance, not just something to be subjugated, but something to be adored in the goddess.
Adored is a great word. So, let's start with Shiva. Um, what can you tell us about the beginnings of Shiva?
So the beginnings of so I would refer to Tantra as Southern Indian shamanism. And Shiva and Kali are very much shamanic gods. They're outside of the Vedic system, and even the Vedic system is more Northern India, influence of Indo-Europeans, from Ukraine thousands of years ago.
Right.
And when they moved east, they kind of had cattle herding and cows as being how they made their money. But in southern India, it was very much agricultural, so the goddess was more significant. But the very beginnings of Shiva are it's definitely from southern India, but also understanding that the source is here with us. It's not just that God is transcendent, but God is very much immanent, which means God is in everything, every person, every material object. And the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is a great conversation between Shiva and Shakti, where Shakti knows all this stuff, but Shiva is giving all of these methods for meditation and for realization of the self in this particular Tantra. You'll find a lot of tantric texts do not divide us from God, but we revere God in everything. So, and there's qualified monism, which means that, and there's a whole bunch of so India is a land of philosophy, and there's a lot of different philosophies with a lot of different names. Qualified monism means that everything that God is in everything, but at the heart of everything. God isn't the stuff around it. So God is in the soul, God is in nature, and God is elsewhere. So these three aspects. And then, and Shiva has that third eye because he sees through the three aspects, present in the three aspects. But for a lot of tantrikas and pujaris that are interested in the Sri Vidya tradition or interested in Shiva or Shakti, the idea is that there's not this barrier between us and God. God became everything, he didn't create everything. And Shiva very much represents, like I said earlier, that thin line between the ocean and the beach, where the ocean meets the beach. Shiva is that, but at the same time, he's also the beach and also the ocean. But that's Advaita Vedanta, which is non-dualism, the opposite of duality. We find duality in Abrahamic traditions. We find duality as, okay, God is there, the devil's down there, and we're in between, and their influences are separated. And whereas with Shiva and Shakti and Shiva are also the bad, not just the good.
Hmm.
And since it's everything, because we have Sattva guna, Tamaguna, and Rajaguna, and these are the three aspects that we discussed in our last collaboration, where we the three aspects that make up everything. And we have Tamaguna, which is darkness, inertia, fear, and then we have Rajaguna, which is activity and passion and drive. And then we have Sattva Guna, which is purity, clarity, clearness, and awareness of the self. Shiva is all of those things in non-dual traditions. Now, there is dualistic Shiva worshippers where they think that Shiva is only elsewhere, transcendent rather than immanent. But there's a lot of different kinds of people who worship Shiva with various different philosophies. But I would say that they tend towards the non-dual Advaita Vedanta aspect of Shaivism. And Shaivas, and I'm a Shakta, but Shaivas and Shaktas, they're very much they're very much aligned in philosophy and understanding of each other. So we tend to get along. But yeah,
You're like, we're bros.
yeah,
We got it.
basically.
So, how did or why is it that Shiva is known as the god of, what is it, destruction and transformation?
Yeah, so there's this misunderstanding in translation, but for what Shiva is. So destruction, it's more deconstruction. So deconstruction of
I was going
illusion.
to ask you if it's more of a sense of realization or breaking down
Mhm.
the parts of ourselves. Is it like that?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that's true. And when so Shiva in all the stories and all the iconography, he's so unconcerned with the world. Like all the gods try so hard to get him concerned with the world, but he's just constantly aware of the self in meditation. He can meditate. A lot of people, when we call ourselves Shiva, Shivoham, Shivoham, when we're calling ourselves Shiva, in actuality, Shiva can meditate for eons and not come out of meditation. So to call ourselves Shiva is a little bit grandiose.
Pompous.
Uh, yeah, but very much a god of deconstruction of illusion, and once again that border between us and the source. But while I talk about Shiva in philosophical terms and talk about what he is, he for people who worship him like me, we very much feel like he's a father, and he's the father of deconstruction of illusion. He doesn't come to destroy things that are serving us. If anything is serving us, he's not going to destroy it. But if something is not serving us, if it's hindering our moksha or mukti, liberation from this of the self from illusion, if something is not hindering us, then he's not going to destroy that. And he's not so the kind of destruction that he is not corruption. There's another way to look at destruction, whereas something corrupts something into alteration and non-existence. He is the transformation of that, or the ending of that which binds, rather than something that
Okay.
is corrupting something that is helping us. He's very much a god of healing and auspiciousness. When we say Om Namah Shivaya, we're saying, we bow to the auspicious one. Shiva itself basically means the auspicious one, and also Shiva has the four elements in it in the various letters. So we're kind of acknowledging that Shiva exists in everything. But yeah, so going back to your question, yeah, I feel like a lot of people misunderstand what Shiva is, but I would call him the most auspicious god that exists as far as our usual understanding of auspiciousness. He doesn't look that way. He's constantly surrounded by ghosts and goblins and all kinds of various beings that seem scary. But that's just because he doesn't differentiate between different beings. he's allowing everybody to come around him and to receive his blessings and to receive his even worship from demons, because he doesn't see a real difference, because he's so not concerned with our limited understanding of the world and the boundaries that we set as human beings.
Okay. I was supposed to have loaded these up for you, and I got sidetracked. Let me load these up real quick.
No worries.
Um, they're really nice too. These pictures that you sent me, are they ones that you have taken?
Yes. Well, not the last one. The last one is Swami Vivekananda, which we can go into him once we get to that one. But yeah, he's very significant for Shiva, because he is the most recent incarnation of Shiva on Earth. And I think that he died in 1911, 1905. I can't remember when he died. I know that he gave a talk at the Chicago World Religions first World Religions Summit in, I believe, 1890, or I think it was in the 1890s. But we actually have a recording of his voice and his speech, which is pretty remarkable, and it comes from the 1890s. But a lot of his writings actually still are very much relevant nowadays, and he writes them for all ages. Yes, Swami Vivekananda, and Vivek means discrimination, and then Ananda means joy. So Viveka, joy and discrimination, and then also some people interpret it as joy of discrimination of food. And if we think about food, what we take into our bodies, we're thinking about various energies. It's not just like what we eat, but what we think about, what we do, everything that sustains us, our spiritual practices, everything that sustains us is some kind of food. But he's the great discriminator of those things, because he figures out what human beings need, and then that's also what he gives back to the world.
I have a question, which I'm sure is on everybody's mind, but how does one yeah, how do you know this is a reincarnation of Shiva?
So it's not universally held. So a lot of people, uh, there's so many different Hindu beliefs in Hinduism. Um, I'm one of the people who believe that even Jesus Christ was an incarnation of Shiva, but a lot of Hindus believe that Shiva doesn't
See, I
incarnate.
believe that Jesus Christ was an incarnation of Hermes, so I get where you're going with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Jesus Christ makes so much more sense in non-Abrahamic contexts, than in Abrahamic context, because a lot of the stuff that he says doesn't make sense for him for a Jewish background. But what was your question again? Say that again.
um,
Oh, how do I know that? So yeah, a
yeah.
lot a lot of Hindus will say no, but the Sri Ramakrishna mission, that's something that I even go to in Irving, I believe. Yeah, Irving, and they believe that, and he doesn't necessarily write, but his disciples hint at that he was an incarnation of Shiva, and then so there's even a divide between in that mission itself. But I think that Sri Ramakrishna was the incarnation of Kali. But some people will say that his companion Sri Sarada Devi was Kali. One of them was Kali. I think it was Sri Ramakrishna, but his disciple Swami Vivekananda. Most people in the mission, Sri Ramakrishna mission, believe that he was the incarnation of Shiva, and it's something that you can either believe or not. It's not like super important, because like he didn't come and say, "Hey, I'm Shiva." Like that wasn't his focus. It was all focused on teaching people.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm curious about the process. Like, did somebody come along one day and see him and go, Shiva? Um,
yeah.
or was there some kind of miracle involved? Or is
So
it just a frame of mind? I'm
with Sri Ramakrishna in India, this is Sri Ramakrishna, which is Swami Vivekananda's master. In
mhm.
India, a whole bunch of Hindu scholars came together, and they looked for the signs in Sri Ramakrishna that he was an avatar of God, and because there's a whole lot of weird things that avatars do. But they looked at all the signs, and they're like, yeah, he's an avatar of God, and they weren't even really associated with Sri Ramakrishna. But he, whatever God it was, he definitely an avatar of God. A lot of
So
and
he met the signs pretty
The
much
signs,
is
yeah.
what you're saying. Yeah.
And then when they read all the signs and said he was an avatar of God, and then he turned to one of his disciples. He's like, "Well, it's good to know that I'm not crazy." He's
That's
like, yeah,
awesome.
"It's good to know I'm not crazy." But so Sri Ramakrishna, he was very much so he was an avatar of confirming that every religion could lead to God. So he realized God through Islam, through Sufis. He realized God through Christianity by worshiping Mother Mary, and he realized God through various Hindu Vedanta and then various Hindu sects of belief. He realized God through all of these different paths and was like, okay, all of these paths are valid. He basically came to basically allow people to see that every single path is valid and you can find God through it. That doesn't mean necessarily people will. It's just that every path
They
is valid.
could.
Yeah, they could basically.
Okay.
And yeah, Swami Vivekananda, we have a bunch of writings that you can buy from they can buy even on Amazon. I highly recommend Swami Vivekananda's works for understanding non-dualism, but also the the path of a human being in realizing the self and how to get there. So it's kind of funny because once you get to his level, um, the some of the more basic rules don't apply. Like I would never eat meat, for instance. It's just because I don't. It's not even necessarily a moralistic thing. I don't want to make suffering a part of me. But for him, Swami Vivekananda, he would eat pork and smoke Marlboro cigarettes. But the same rules didn't really apply when you're on that level. But when I learned that, I was like, wow, I never would have guessed. But for us down here, it's better to like avoid certain things.
Right.
But once again, it's not about moralism. It's not about something being right or wrong. It's about the processing of energy and how that affects your own energy, basically.
So, can we talk about his physical aspects as shown through art? You want to go ahead and break it down for us?
Yeah, for sure. So the trishula, which is the trident thing, that him having that, very similar to why Kali has a trishula or a trident, is because it represents the mastery of tamaguna, rajaguna, sattva-guna, the three kind of natures that make up everything, the three kinds of energies that make up everything in existence. And now, when we say tamaguna being darkness and inertia, so a chair, tamaguna is very good for a chair. It needs to be a chair. If nothing would be solid, we couldn't sit anywhere. We wouldn't have gravity if Tamaguna didn't exist. So it's not necessarily a moralistic thing that I made it sound like. It's certain energies have to, for us to do anything in this world, we have to have some Rajaguna. We have to have some kind of drive. It's not necessarily that it's just desire or passion or something like that, but we have to be a little bit passionate to do anything in this world.
Right.
But basically, the trishula represents the mastery of these three natures. The little drum right there, it can represent a heartbeat, but it also represents the moving of the planets. The drum is mounted on the trishula, but it represents the motion of the Earth and the planets and everything kind of working together. The snake around his neck, it represents Kundalini rising, and Kundalini is coiled at the bottom of our spine. And when we raise it, we reach various levels of enlightenment, various levels of kind of realization of ourself and our enactment of our mission as Kundalini rises. That's what the snake represents around his neck. He has a hand like this, held up. That means don't be afraid. He has one hand holding down by his side. That means blessings. Basically saying don't be afraid and here's some blessings. The tiger skin that he's sitting on represents that he has overcome his aggression. He has basically subdued his aggression and can use it if he needs to, but he has slain it within himself, so he doesn't need to be aggressive. He doesn't need to be violent. And then we also have Mount Kailash behind him, which is it's a holy mountain in Hinduism that many yogis meditate on. And some of these yogis will look like they're dead meditating, and they'll be in sub-zero temperatures with like no warm clothes on, but they'll be meditating for hours or days on Mount Kailash. But yeah, and of course we have the Om symbol over there, which is the cosmic vibration. It's the little 30 over there in the corner with the little A on top. Actually, it's funny because Om, the way you pronounce it, AUM, very much looks like in English if we were to put those letters together. But Om is the
Right.
cosmic vibration, and it's the canvas upon which everything exists. Let me see if there's anything else. Okay, yeah, the three markings. So we discussed qualified monism earlier. Monism is the three aspects: nature, the soul, and God. And those are the three lines on his head, his forehead. And then the third eye in between is that he pierces all three natures. He's within all three natures. Is that third eye? It
Right.
also represents the various planes of existence. Those lines, and then how he is in all planes of existence with that third eye, and also that he is so the third eye also is a projection of our pineal gland. It is basically the pineal gland. I call a trans-dimensional organ, and it's how we access other dimensions. It's how we access even other dimensions of self. So that's also kind of what the third eye represents
I did
on his
have a
forehead.
question about that.
Mhm.
I was looking through pictures and creating images to use for the thumbnail. Um, there were different numbers of lines on every picture I looked at. So is there any set number with any meaning, or is it just representative of?
So it depends on which school of Indian philosophy you follow. So there's not like an appropriate amount of lines. If there's three lines, it could mean the heavens and hells and earth. But it's different in Hinduism. There's no infinite hell. The hells are a place you go when you have bad, really really bad karma. Because usually you incarnate as an animal if you have really bad karma, and then you'll eventually become human again. But you have to be really really bad to go to the hells for any amount of time. It could be piercing the hells, the earth, and then the heavens. And once again, the heavens, there's two aspects to the heavens in the astral realm. Some of the lunar heavens are for enjoyment of good karma before you come back here. The solar heavens are the ones where you've graduated from Earth and you're continuing on your journey. It could represent that. If it's five lines or more, it could represent the various chakras and how he pierces all the various chakras. And with Kundalini and Shakti, two sides of the same coin. If Kali is there, or if Shakti is there, Shiva is there as well, also helping you along your journey along your various chakras. But in other schools of Indian philosophy, they will mean other things. But yeah, there's no necessarily set number of lines. It's just it's trying to show you through a symbol what the purpose of the image is in essence.
One of the things I saw also is that his throat is always blue.
Yeah. So basically Shakti grabbed his so he swallowed poison from the Asuras, which Asuras many people call them just different kinds of gods, but they can be understood as demons, but in a Hindu context it's a little bit different in Hinduism. But he drank poison provided by one of the Asuras, and he didn't view poison as being any different than anything else because he just sees everything as the same. The same reason he has goblins around him and ghosts, and he has good beings around him as well. But Shakti basically grabbed his throat to keep the poison from going into his system, and his throat turned blue. And by the way, so a lot of Hindu deities that are represented as blue, they were originally represented as black. So with Kali, if she's ever represented as blue, she was always traditionally represented as black. But the reason that they changed it to blue, one because of caste, kind of societal racism towards Southern Indian people, but also because blue represents the sky or the causal realm, which the gods are said to inhabit. And just like in our realm, the sky is blue, then that's also representing that they are very much causal, very much causing things, and they're not inhibited by things. Um, but yeah, so the poison story is just his not his. I wouldn't say non-discrimination, but it's basically his non-discrimination between different things and swallowing the poison. The cobra as well around his neck. It also represents the Nag people,
Oh
or
yeah.
yeah, and in a lot of Hindu stories like the Mahabharata, the Nag people were actually Greeks that moved to India, thousands of years ago, and they had all this various philosophical knowledge. And then serpents also were considered as like knowledge-based entities. So a lot of these people were called the Nag people, and they were actually Greeks. But his kind of tie to like the Greek knowledge and Greek teachings is also represented in the Nog or the serpent around his neck. So very philosophically and shamanically based entity in essence.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I have. I was wondering which Greek gods would conflate with Hindu gods. I do that a lot around the world. Like
Poseidon,
Odin, Poseidon.
Poseidon and Shiva for sure. Yeah, you're definitely not the first person to make comparisons. But
I think we do that. I mean, like Hermes and Odin were travelers, both with flat hats, and I believe that several of the gods that different cultures have around the world are similar gods that have just traveled. They don't stay in their own backyard. They can go wherever the hell they want. So that's one of the things I view it like that. Um,
Shiva also aligns to Odin. So if we're all of the signs for Odin exist kind of with Shiva as well. So even Hindus and even Norse practitioners kind of draw the line between Odin and Shiva. Um, Knowledge based entities, sacrificing for wisdom and knowledge, just like realizing the self. He's a god of realizing the self. Magic. Shiva is very much associated with various healing blessings, and also having the divine missiles that once he throws it, it has to hit. Just like Odin has his spear Gungnir,
Spear, yeah.
that never misses its mark. Shiva has the exact same thing with a divine missile that pops up in so many different Hindu stories. And Odin's very shamanic, and Shiva's very exclusively shamanic. And there's a few stories that we could go into, but it just depends.
Um, One of the things I love about Odin and Hermes is that they are so similar. And if you talking this about Odin and Shiva, just kind of makes me look a little twice. I like making these spiritual connections around the globe. It's just awesome. It's like those cave paintings in different parts of the world or showing the same symbols and creatures. Um, yeah, I think that a lot was lost at one point in history, and
For
the world
sure.
used to be more connected.
And so whether you're a pagan polytheist or you're a Hindu or you're anybody that believes in multiple gods, even if you see them all as part of one god, we have to make a decision at some point, like, do we just understand the gods in their own context, or do we understand that they are different names and forms for the same entities? And
That's
I
the
think
way I
that
view it.
I for me there's no, so I used to exclusively view it just like you. um I became more hesitant as time passed because we there's some things that we lose when we don't understand deities in their own context. And there's some things that we overlook,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's harder to get closer to them if we don't understand them in their own context. And needless to say, various cultures, I can't go up to a Hindu Indian person in India and be like, oh yeah, Shiva's Odin. Like they're
yeah.
not
No,
gonna.
I
That's
would
not
never
something
do
that's
that.
not something you
No,
should do. Like that's not.
no.
But in if you know where to play it, if you know your audience, then that's something that I think is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that all gods are one God. Um, but
Different
that's
masks, maybe different faces.
exactly. I look at it as different. They get up and go to the closet and see what part of the world they're going to step into today. So
That's a very Hindu idea, actually.
is
Yeah,
it really?
it is. It's very Hindu. A lot of people think that Hindus are polytheists, but the vast majority of Hindus believe that God is a god of many masks, and these various gods and goddesses are different masks for the source. Um,
Exactly.
and it's funny because in Hinduism, there's like 33 million gods. So, but at the same time, there's this deeper understanding that they're all masks. So but at the same time, we can't lose our adoration in our relationship with the individual gods,
For the
because
individual.
we never reach the source if we don't feel like a god or a goddess is like a father or mother, or at least it's way harder. There are paths where you can view um, various gods or goddesses as even lover. That's much harder to do. There's you can view it at you can view baby Krishna as your child, your God being your child, but there needs to be some kind of emotional connection, and there needs to be a point where it's like I'm not going to take my philosophy so far as to tell Shiva about Shiva. You know what I
Right.
mean? So there needs to be that definitely emotional connection, even while understanding these philosophical truths.
On that front, I look at it as they wouldn't bother coming up with this face or this persona or this mask if it wasn't important. So you need to learn about it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, you can view everything as the same, but like you say, each one has different lessons for us to learn. Um, well, let's see what other pictures you sent me. Oh no, not that one. That's my friends Chris and Ken. Pay no attention. Um, You like that, Selena? You like how I worked that into the show? Yeah, you do. She's always making fun of me that I'm always a Chris Butler fanatic.
Yeah.
So what are we seeing here?
So looking at a Shiva linga, a lingam. So a Shiva, I always call it linga. It's lingam, but basically, we will offer various things on the Shiva linga. There's a story that this great king in India hired this stonemason to basically make an image of God. And after many days of like trying to figure out what God would look like, there's two different endings to the story. One is that he made a monkey, just like Hanuman, which Hanuman is the incarnation of Shiva. But then another story says that he actually left the stone as it was, like just basically a huge stone. Like he couldn't make the stone anything other than it was, and the stone was already God. So that's one tie into a Shiva linga. But it also represents what our universe looked like when it expanded and the Big Bang happened. When the Big Bang happened, when everything kind of like came into existence through that moment of creation, or God became everything, there was this projection that looked like a Shiva lingam. So to connect with a Shiva, we might say Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and we might pour Ganga Jal, basically water from the river Ganga, upon the Shiva lingam, which you can find at any Hindu grocery store. We also offer honey and milk. So there's various aspects of Shiva that are represented in the Shiva lingam, and we offer each thing to various aspects of Shiva. Or you can just dump yogurt, honey, milk, and Ganga Jal onto it while reciting Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. There is also a Vedic mantra for Shiva, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Now, the difference between Vedic and Tantric, so Om Namah Shivaya, is Tantric, which means that it doesn't matter how you say it. You can say it however you want to, as long as you're saying those individual words. In Vedic mantras, you have to say them a very specific way for them to have power, which I never found to be true because I say Om Namah Shivaya. Hold on. Om Namo Bhagavati Rudraya. I say that in a way that I say it, and I still feel the energy heightened. I still say that 108 times with my mala, and then I still feel the same energetic thing. But in Vedic is more ordered, so there's very specific ways you're supposed to say things. But Om Namah Shivaya, anybody can say it any way they want, offering these things on the Shiva Lingam. Some people draw a connection between the Shiva Lingam and a sacrificial pole that would be in villages where it's sacrifice animals to, but that's usually not as prevalent as the idea of it representing the universe. And then there's even a phallic understanding that's the most incorrect, where that it represents basically a penis. But those were conclusions drawn by Westerners trying to understand Hinduism, and they tried to compare it to other similar objects like
Right.
Frere. Frere has very much a similar phallic associated with him, and I've worked with Frere a lot. Once again, this is one of those instances where it's best for us to try to understand things in their original cultural context, because then some of the teaching or the significance gets lost if we don't. But this is one of those cases. And then that trident next to him, the Trishula, is represents, we talked about that, and the snake is also, we talked about that. But I find that a Shiva lingam that's made out of brass or copper or some kind of metal holds the best vibration. That's why I have Kali made out of brass, and I have Durga made out of brass. All of my statues of Norse gods, though, are made out of wood. So once again, there's a little bit of a difference as far as understanding or significance. I wouldn't say that any particular material is wrong. It's just that I find that deities made out of brass or some kind of metal tend to hold vibration better. So that's why you see these brass things before you.
It's funny you say that. I'm about to start a line of study about metals and magic. Um, I'll keep you informed. So let's look at what other pictures we got here, my friend. It's fascinating. I'm finally getting some answers to some
Oh,
questions.
good. I'm glad I'm providing them. So my understanding is not as solid on Shiva, but I do my best. So usually we'll have red flowers for Kali or Shakti, whatever form of Shakti you worship, and then white flowers for Shiva. Shiva is also, when you're offering to Shiva, he doesn't really need like a whole lot. With Kali, there's more like specificity. With Shiva, if you just dump some Ganga Jal or some water on top of a Shiva lingam and recite Om Namah Shivaya, then he's good. Like he's satisfied. But with Kali, the offerings are more specific. But so the white also represents, just like the gods are in us in essence. The white represents semen, and the red represents menses. So we have the male and female, and when we have them together on an altar or a shrine, then you're honoring both the divine masculine and the divine feminine, in their two colors. And red is very powerful. I'll always love red and black over anything else. That's because I'm a Shakta. But white is very good for. It's honestly probably the best color to wear. Not all Hindus, especially not Shaktas, will believe this, but I tend to think that white is the best color to wear only because you are not soaking in everything. You're not soaking in all the various energies around you. You are reflecting them away from you. Anything that comes towards you when you're walking through a crowd, when you're around other people that you might not want to soak up their energy, black is what you wear when you soak up all their energy. And I wear a lot of black, but my general advice is to wear lighter colors. And then this is something that Sadhguru said as well. But most Shaktas will not believe that, though. That's one difference that I have. But yeah, and it's good to constantly have flowers that are real flowers, but also flowers. So roses are best, in my opinion, for Kali if you're in the West. But you might want to get some flowers that are like these red flowers because they last longer. Like these two sets of flowers, like they're about a week and a half old. Roses or other white flowers would not last that long. It's better to have fresh flowers no matter what they are and offer them to the god and goddess than it would be to just have something that looks even nicer. But yeah, that's kind of my ending on flowers.
um, wh- Now you answered all the color questions I had. I'm just noticing that I uploaded the same. Yep, I uploaded the same picture twice. I believe there was another one, but that's all of them we got for there. Um, so say somebody wanted to. Well, this is a two-part question. How would somebody know if they were being called to Shiva, and how would they proceed with getting to know him?
So I've had at least one friend, probably two, but the other one I don't remember quite as well. But I remember this woman that is exclusively pagan, in kind of like the Western traditions. She had a dream of a blue guy with horns, and he had a trishula. And for some reason, when she was telling me about the dream, I didn't make the connection because the horns threw me off. But horns represent Nandi, which is like Shiva's bull, that's his like sacred animal is a bull. Um, but you might have a dream of a blue guy. If you have a dream of a blue guy, it could be Krishna or it could be Shiva. If the blue guy is on a mountain or he is meditating, it's probably Shiva. Also, you might be attracted to certain iconography, like the Trishula, like the bull Nandi, or you might be attracted to the his Nataraja form, which is like he has all of these. like little flames around him in a circle. It's the same. It's the
Oh,
same
I've seen
statue
that
that's
image.
yeah. It's outside CERN as well, and I think the scientists there kind of understood what it meant. It doesn't mean anything evil. It means basically the soul Purusha at the center of everything, and the cosmos is kind of traveling around soul. So center everywhere, circumference nowhere, as Paramahansa Yogananda used to say. But his Rudra form is basically the howling god. And with a lot of things Shiva, and especially Kali, but with a lot of things Shiva, you'll find that it's, as Constantine Constantinos defined it, good dark. So there's bad light, bad dark, good dark. Bad dark is basically a devil worshiper who would like will have no problem eating a baby. Good dark, yeah, that's bad dark.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that one.
Good. That's the extreme of it. But
Right.
but good dark is something that it may seem dark, but it is highlighting deeper truths, and its relationship with everything is not one that is antithetical to everything. It's more of a balance between everything and a cooperation with everything and everyone else. That's good dark. But it seems dark because there's a lot of iconography that like Shiva has that seems dark, but it's really just good. Bad light is something like a pastor that takes in a whole bunch of money and just doesn't give any of the money away or put it towards the church, but keeps all the money. That is bad light, where he's acting like he is a person of light, but is actually a negative person. And good light is somebody like Jesus Christ, basically. Once again, an extreme. But if you're attracted to certain iconography, and if you're attracted to a blue guy meditating, or you have a dream about this, then you might want to research Shiva. And Shiva, you can read his stories in the various Puranas. There's a whole lot of Puranas that we probably don't have time to go into, but there's stories with Shiva and Shakti and their various escapades, and they all have deeper truths. Um, but if you want to, let me grab this book real quick.
Uh-huh.
So I only found this book about 4 or 5 months ago, but it's 112 meditations for self-realization, and it's basically a commentary on the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. The Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, and it's only like $10 on Amazon. It's highly worth it. But basically, there are 112 various ways to meditate in this book, but it appears as a conversation between Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is explaining things to Shakti or and various ways to reach self-realization, with the intent of talking to as many different kinds of people as there are. Various techniques for self-realization will work for various people. So there will be a technique in here for every single person, every kind of person on the planet, 112. And it's the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is much longer. This is more of a commentary on it. But if you get this one is highly digestible. If you're trying to reach Shiva, if you're trying to understand Shiva, self-realization is key, and it's 112 meditations.
Selena's
Uh,
just posted the link for you.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, $10 on Amazon. But that one's highly digestible for anybody who's new to Tantra or Shiva or anything like that. And honestly, I highly recommend getting a Shiva lingam, and getting Ganga Jal. So Ganga Jal is just water from the river Ganga. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get it also at Hindu grocery stores. And don't drink it. It's not meant for drinking. It's meant for like basically holy water. But it's gathered directly from the river Ganga. But if you're going to get of a Shiva lingam, I'd highly recommend getting one made out of brass or some kind of metal. And once again, it becomes it's always sacred. So usually, if I'm moving this, I should carry it on top of my head, but I'm not doing that right now. But that's what we do with the god or goddess when we're moving it.
Right.
But if you just dump Gangajal and they say Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, if you just do that and you say it 108 times, possibly with you don't have to do it 108, but if you're going to do it, I highly recommend also getting a mala with 108 beads, and these are made out of obsidian. And this is my mala, but you will kind of like filter the mala, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah, and you can say it slower. Um, Highly recommend getting a mala of Shiva Lingam and Ganga Jal, and maybe some white flowers to also offer onto it, and you're good. Shiva's very, very easy to start with. He once again he accepts everybody because he doesn't see a difference between anybody. So
I
he's
love that. I
yeah,
really
and
do.
he's very much very easy to satisfy and very easy to connect with because he's not going to look at you as no matter what your economic situation, no matter what you've done in your past, and no matter what kind of predisposition you have, Shiva's going to look at you as the same. Now, at the same time, we have to be careful because if we try to get Shiva to go against other people, and we talked about this with Kali, then it might be spear time because you're trying to use. It's almost like you're trying to use the source to do
Yeah.
something, and it's never wise in a negative
User
context.
or misuse, maybe?
Yes, yes. So if you're trying to get blessings from Shiva for somebody, that is way better than trying to get Shiva to attack somebody. It's almost like an ant is trying to convince a human to like step on another anthill. Like it's not gonna end up great. But yeah. So just keep in mind that I always don't recommend negative workings. But
Yeah.
honestly, you can offer all kinds of stuff to Shiva. And if you look into the Tantras, you read his Puranas, very accessible and very easily digestible because there's so many different translations. And
Are
you can
there
look up the
any
various.
aspects of Shiva that should be feared? Well, any god should be feared and respected, but um
Yeah, yeah. Uh so Smashana Kali, like we talked about with Kali, Smashana Kali, the Kali that I have on my altar actually, is the one that usually people fear. But once again, I don't try to get her to do anything like negative, so it never is a problem. But
right.
Rudra, the howling god. Rudra basically means the howling one. That is the most extreme version of Shiva, but it is also the most healing and transformative version of Shiva. So you get all the extremes in Rudra. And the Vedic mantra is Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. And then that is basically an easy mantra that you can say for him. I'd also recommend anybody who is kind of new to mantras or any of these kinds of offerings or understanding. There's a couple apps that I would recommend. So Sadhana, basically Sadhana means like spiritual practice. If anybody wants to post a link, feel free. But that is free on Android, iPhone, whatever. And you can go to various like temple areas and like the little like it's not necessarily a game. It's more like a little like you go to various areas, and then you can go to various temples and then learn the mantras for various gods, and then you can also do like little virtual rituals where you'll pick up various things and pour various things or ring a bell. A lot of Hindus would think that that's not as good as doing it physically, but I've realized that there's a certain heightened energy when using the app, so it's not completely useless.
Hmm.
And then there's also a Tantra app that's exclusively focused on the Sri Vidya or the various goddesses. So if you look up Tantra in apps, you should be able to find that one as well. And these will introduce you to how things are done and various mantras, various levels of like sophistication. You can even track how many times you say a mantra. And you can also track basically, you can say, I'm going to say this mantra for 10 minutes, and then set the timer. And then you say a mantra for 10 minutes, and then it'll let you know when you're over. So I've never seen apps like this for any other spiritual tradition, but I find them that they're very good for newcomers and they're very accessible. But yeah, yep, she put it up right there. But yeah, highly recommend. Free. You can make donations if you want. But she just keep in mind that Shiva is very approachable, far more so than any other. I would say honestly, any other Hindu god. Kali still kind of sees the difference between things, and she'll always defend children, women, or the innocent
Hmm.
over other people. Shiva, not concerned with. He's not super concerned with what kind of person you are, as long as you're not trying to get him to do something bad.
Right.
So just offer whatever you offer, however you offer it. Just offer it with sincerity, and you'll be fine. And once again, Shiva Lingam, easy to pick up, even on Amazon, or you can find them all over the place.
So we're going to wrap up today, but I was going to ask you, there's two deities I would like to have you come back and speak on sometime. Narada and uh oh my gosh, who was the other one? Oh, Ganesh.
Ganesh, yeah.
Um I would like to have you speak on these two deities in the future sometime if you're willing to come back.
I could definitely speak on Ganesh. I'm more familiar with Ganesh for sure. And there's also we can also go into the a couple stories that I know we didn't really go into stories this time, but
He's right up
there's
in me.
yeah. Well, and once again, Ganesh is highly accessible as well. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Like even that simple mantra, very beneficial. But yeah, I'd love to come back, and yeah, it was good talking to you, and yeah, thank you everybody for watching.
All right. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to Hunter's channel. The description or the link is in the description box. Um,
And
and
I can say a couple more links if that's okay with you.
yeah,
Uh,
please.
So if anybody's interested in photography, so by trade I'm a photographer, feel free to follow me on Prime Eye Photography. I as an EYE, Prime Eye Photographer, on Instagram, or you can follow me at Veve Masta, VEVE Masta. That is my like personal one, not my photography one. Feel free to find me on Facebook. If you type in Hunter Salazar, I should be on Facebook as well. But yeah, anybody who wants to reach out is more than welcome to. And once again, my YouTube channel is Hunter Salazar on YouTube.
That's right. I'm gonna tell you this, bro. You got one of the coolest names I've ever heard.
Really,
Hunter Salazar. That's a badass name.
it's pretty rare. It's because usually those two names don't go together.
Yeah, it
But it
sounds
works.
pretty cool when you break it
Appreciate
down.
it.
It brings up the image of Hunter Salazar. You know, one of those cool
Yeah,
dudes.
noir kind of like detective or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. I want to thank you, Hunter. Stick around backstage. We'll talk. And everybody else, thank you. I love you. I love you all. But I gotta go.